Hi there. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Have you noticed that application forms, etc., when they ask your name,
Yes,
surname, etc., and then you need to put on pronouns that you accept?
yeah,
Have you
yeah,
seen?
yeah. Yes, I've started to see the pronouns, and while they've been doing it for a while, people on the what did they call the email signature, they will have their pronouns. I don't have mine
Seriously.
yet on mine.
Is this one
On
of the
the
things that we need to put down as a preference?
No, so what people do, like where they have this signature at the bottom in, I don't know, in academia we do it. So and then you have like, you'll have like the company signature, like your position and
Mm-hmm.
your, I don't know, what do they call it? Yes, it's a signature. Your
Yes, your
electronic
signature block. Yeah.
signature, your automatic signature. So they
Yeah.
will have they'll have the pronouns there, his and him, or yeah, they,
She
them,
and her.
she and her.
Okay.
There we go. So they'll have that. So I've seen a number of people do that already, but I haven't done it yet. So do you do it? Have
No,
you
I don't, because once
put that
again,
on
this is
your?
something that I got to consciously strive to be aware
Yeah,
of and
yeah,
open-minded to, and so forth. But therefore, coming back to the whole leap year thing and saying, well, from a whole romantic point of view,
yeah,
traditionally speaking, so when we're still talking about binary genders, male and female,
yeah,
the
yeah.
female has got license to pop the question rather than waiting for the man to eventually. And by the way, the man also has to drum up and all kinds of courage to pop the question. Um, and it's a traumatic event for the male,
A
generally
traumatic
speaking.
event.
Yes, you know
Okay.
why? At the very heart
No,
of it sits
yes,
the
no. I
fear
think
of
I think
rejection.
I know it's about the fear of rejection, but I often think that if that's what you're intending to do, then the two of you would have needed to have discussed it already. You cannot surprise someone with an engagement.
But it's
As
romantic,
in,
don't you think?
no, no, it's not. It's unfair to place someone in a position where you may not have had discussions around that yet. And so in I think that that's something that needs to be discussed.
Really? But
And
what
yes,
about
two
the
people need to discuss it and decide it. You can still surprise it, and generally, what I've seen couples do these days, I would almost say informed couples, is that they decide on that this is what they want to do, and I've seen that what then the exact day when someone proposes to the person, that will be a surprise. But the decision to get married and the decision to even about the ring, in a sense, has already been made. So there is no surprise. Well, I mean, it's surprise in terms of it's surprise in terms of, like, okay, they're gonna do it, on the birthday, or they're gonna do it that, but the actual decision is not the surprise. Am I
is
making sense here?
yeah,
Yeah,
I understand what you're
because yeah,
saying,
yeah,
but that is so unromantic.
you can have romance and your relationship doesn't necessarily work either. So romance, I
Yes,
think it should
agreed.
not be the aim. Romance
Well,
should not be the aim.
well, Hollywood tells us that you pop the question, and when you do, it must be a complete surprise, and it must be in public.
No, it must never be a surprise. And everyone is different. You don't need, do you know what pressure putting it in public does? Oh my word. That's so much pressure. I'd never place anyone in that position, even if I knew that they were gonna say yes.
So, okay, so what I'm now learning
Unless it's
today.
all orchestrated, and unless it's all orchestrated and the person has a vague idea like how they're going to do it, that but at least the couple should have discussed already that they are getting married, and maybe they want to do it in 2026 or whatever they're going to do that. And then the actual engagement itself, that they've spoken about the engagement, but the popping of the it is almost like these days, from what I've seen and been involved in several younger couples, what I've seen is that popping of the ring or the question is not a surprise. The event itself is more symbolic.
Oh,
So the
okay.
guy will, so everything would have been discussed beforehand already. Maybe just how the person is going to do it wouldn't be a surprise. And when they do it is going to be a surprise, right? So, but not the decision to get married. Oh my word, that is like insane.
Well, I thought the only pressure is on the person asking. I didn't realize that there's also pressure on the person having to respond. It's either yes or no. I mean,
Oh my word! No, this absolutely. I know that is no. You cannot do it that way. That is like so much pressure for anyone to either partners. That is why you need to discuss it. And this is the issue with premarital counseling, for example. So with premarital counseling, you don't go when you just get married. You need to actually go way ahead of time, because often what they find is that it's almost a foregone conclusion, because at that stage the couple would have decided that they're getting married, and then it's very difficult for them to change their mind if they suddenly discover here are some things that are not compatible or they are deal breakers. So if you have any intention, if a person has any intention of getting married, if a couple has an intention of getting married, that is when you should be saying, okay, let's go for some premarital counseling and see what happens.
so that before you make the decision, you say.
Yes, before you make the official decision, because it often people leave it too late. Number one, for the counseling, and you don't suddenly surprise the person with an engagement ring. I mean, these things you discuss, and I think that's the difference. Maybe you're supposed to discuss getting married. You're supposed to discuss, those things. Yeah, that's my view. People may, that and I have to tell you, it's a slightly informed view. I mean, it's not only my personal preference here, that's also that would also be my, if someone had to come for counseling to me, that would be my, if someone was intending to propose to their partner, I would ask, have you guys discussed it? Are they aware of it? Yeah. Do you, because
Ah,
you need to know that. Yeah. So,
so from a more sort of informed point of view, professional point of view. I
yeah.
mean, typically speaking, before you then make that decision, what are the things that you need to consider?
The things that you need to consider is, I mean, obviously, the I was gonna say, I think that you should need to go for counseling. I think that you, in terms of, there's a whole list of things, in terms of conflict management skills, communication. How do you do that? What are your plans for the future? Kids, for example, no kids, adoption, etc., etc. Finances, how do you guys sort out or think about finances? How are you going to do all of that? Can you agree on those things? What are the deal breakers? There's things like prenup or no prenup, and these are like important decisions to kind of discuss. So that's why all those things that you would kind of get in premarital counseling actually should be done when you're in a relationship already, or even thinking of getting married. So, you know, even down to in-laws and those sort of things needs to be discussed. And yeah, important things in terms of differences as well. What are your how are you going to manage the differences? And yeah, I think your views and perceptions about marriage. I think that there's a quite a lot that couples need to work through before they decide that they are going to get married. And I think that maybe too few couples do that.
So you're
Yeah,
talking to an incurable romantic. So what you are saying, what I'm hearing, is that when
yeah,
you make this commitment,
yeah,
especially marriage, a marital commitment,
yeah.
it's not something driven by pure emotion. Oh, I love you, I'm in love with you, and therefore let's get
No,
married.
it
It's
can be
it's
that, and
it's
it
an
has to.
ingredient, sure, it gets you
Yes,
to a point,
yeah.
but before you make the commitment, you're following a rational decision making process. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. So,
Um,
and no, you have to do that because there's so much involved in terms of your future, your well-being, and sometimes the first 2 years of attraction or being in love, and there are several books about it. The we that doesn't last. The in love feeling doesn't last, and that can just be a the initial crash that you have for 2 years. That you know, madly in love feeling, and there's
mhm.
actually science. There's actually science around it, also brain science around it, that they actually say that that's why we are blindly in love. Like, you don't see the person's faults. And there's a Chapman, yes, the five love languages. um he also talks about the fact that can you can you name five things about your partner that you do not appreciate or that you have a problem with? And he said that if you can't find five things, then you don't know the person well enough. And
Even though you
sometimes we
say,
don't get there. Yeah, and sometimes you don't get there, even though you may love many things about them.
yeah,
Yeah. So you need to be able to get to know the person well enough that you're able to recognize the five things that you don't appreciate about the person, that you don't like. So yes. And
so
I think that I think that we have been, I'm not, I can be romantic. I'm not saying that I can't, but I think that relationships are the one area that can seriously affect one's mental health and well-being. And maybe I've spent too much time working with the relationships that don't work, and so I am biased in that sense. But I'm actually not also. I'm very, I think that um having a good, you have to be attracted to the person, but that's not all. And that realization that you're gonna have that crush and attraction for 2 years, and it's probably gonna go away. Can I still be with that person after that? Can I still be with a person um, even when I don't like them at that moment? And I think,
important.
can I can I stick it through the difficult times? You know, what happens if the person becomes unemployed, for
Aha,
example? How
aha.
are we going to manage that? What happens if the person cheats on me? Does that mean the relationship is ended, or are we gonna work through? What happens if, so many times couples focus, we often focus on the really good things, and it's absolutely important to focus on the really good things.
Mm-hmm.
But to if you want to be realistic about your relationship,
Mm-hmm.
um, because this is the person you're going to do life with.
Mm-hmm.
And life isn't only romantic movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are also times when you've got to clean the house, you've got to put the dirt out,
Mm-hmm.
and, or pick up the dog poop or whatever you've got to do.
Mm-hmm.
And those things. And I think that when I've seen it, I find that a lot of young people that I know who've gotten married, you see the divorce rate is extremely high, and particularly among younger people, because maybe we've been raised, women particularly have been raised with these fantasies, and I some still do have those fantasies about the guy on the, not the shining, I was going to say the knight in shining arm on the white horse. Well, maybe
Mm-hmm.
it comes the guy comes in a nice car with a nice job, but that's not the reality often. So yeah.
Huh. I must say,
Yeah.
in amongst all these things that you've said, and they're so practical, and the people listening to this playback and the recording later, um, th- that challenge, because you know what, when you're driven, and I think about the blood rush to the head and the butterflies is
Yeah.
dopamine, the dopamine
Yeah.
flooding your system,
Exactly.
and everything is just wonderful, and I do know it's not forever, as you say, and once that goes away and that feeling of being in love is now completely gone, and it's now about doing life, as you say, it's dealing with practical matters, but that commitment, that partnership, it talks about, I mean, as I'm thinking about it, talks about, okay, so how are we going to deal with the fact, but the key thing is, before you want to enter into a relationship, you got to assess
Absolutely.
whether it's worthwhile,
Yeah.
to take the next step. That next step of commitment is the things that are important, that bonds the relationship. For children, if both parties want kids, fine, but how many kids,
Mm.
also
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
But at the
And
outset,
yeah,
yeah.
and I mean, and that can be a particular difficult issue. And are you both able to have kids? And what if you aren't, one party is not able to have kids? It's about,
Mm,
and I read somewhere that rather, I wish I could find the quote, and this person was saying, he quoted his mom. He said, my mom always said, rather have the courage to have the difficult conversations now than have years of dysfunctional relational patterns.
mm,
So rather have the courage to have the difficult and the brave conversation now
yeah,
than to live with years of a dysfunctional relationship.
yeah. So despite the butterflies, acknowledge
Yeah.
the
So
butterflies, calm
yeah,
yourself down, cold
yeah,
shower, cold bath, whatever,
yeah,
be sober, and have those
yeah,
conversations around those things, as you're saying. But
yeah.
that quote basically then is the next thing that I want to talk about, is that if you want to enjoy the journey that you're on every
Mm,
single day, loving what you're doing what you love, and every day looking forward to doing these things, being in a dysfunctional relationship just drains that away.
absolutely. Yeah. And so you find that, because what we don't realize, or maybe we do realize, is how much time do we spend in our job, and how much time do we spend outside our job? And you'll find that the time that you spend outside of your job, most likely half of that will be with your person, with the other
Mm,
person, with your partner.
mm,
And so
mm-hmm,
that's a lot of time
mm,
um to be unhappy.
mm, mm.
And so you'd rather want it to be positive, and you want it to be, you want it to be um joyful, and you want it to also, but there's also times that it's just going to be about life, like I said, remembering when the garbage people are gonna come and put it out and not forgetting it. Yeah, so I think that
Very,
that's,
very practical. So,
yeah,
just to sum it all up,
yeah,
it's amazing how we just had a conversation today,
yeah,
and I actually like it. Is it is the principle of looking before you leap, and it's true in relationships, partnerships, whether it's more sort of
yeah,
professional partnerships, whether you
yeah,
want to make a purchase decision.
yeah.
Look before you leap. Make a
Wow,
rational
a purchase
decision.
decision. Did you say purchase, as in
Yes,
buy?
yes, yes.
Oh my word.
Same thing
Wow.
happens. You
Okay.
have heart palpitations and you think this is the thing
Mm.
that I want. And then you sit
Yeah,
with
oh gosh.
buyer's remorse afterwards.
Oh my word. You so said you say you're romantic, but that's so cynical.
I
Buyer's
am trying
remorse.
to. Well, it's kind of what happens because I think even in a relationship, we got married. I thought, you know, I've now sobered up, and you're not the woman I thought you were, or the man, or person, or partner, or they that I thought you were. Whatever the pronoun is.
Yeah,
Um, because you didn't make a rational decision. So, yeah, I think sobering. But if the intent is to enjoy your life, enjoy everything that you're
yeah,
pursuing,
yeah,
especially this year in 2024, it is have a look at your relationships, whether they're romantic, whether they're platonic, whether it's family, whether it's professional relationships. Have a look at them and say, you know what? Before I enter into them, so we're not talking about being in them because it's a different conversation, I guess. But
yeah.
before you leap, look and look carefully and look courageously, is what you're saying. Have those difficult conversations before because you know what it is you're working on. You want to reap a harvest of a joyful life.
Thank you. And I was gonna say, I also like this one concept that this one couple has. We can talk again about this couple. Um they are psychotherapists who work on relationships. And they have this 3-to-1 principle. So every third week, try and go for a nice date with
Mm,
with your partner. Every second month, try, so that's the two. Every second month, try to go do a day trip, or if you can get away, go away. And once a year, do a holiday together. That's your 3-to-1.
wonderful, and that's a good place to end
Yep.
our conversation today. And next week, we now know you are going to be sharing with us a topic of your particular choice.
Okay, thank you. I will do that. Yeah, I will do that.
So yeah, have a fantastic time. Thank you, Julia, for joining us. And for those of you listening to this, be challenged anyway, you know.
Thank you.
And we wish you all of the best, or best of 2024. Let it be the best year ever.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.